corruption. I will give you an example. In Nigeria, between 1956 or late 50s to mid 80s, there were many arrests, prosecution, and jailing. There was this corrupt practice decree of 1975, whereby the Murtala administration arrested most government officials, jailed them, but the corrupt practices continue. When Buhari, the late president, became military head of state in 1983, he has arrested many politicians. He jailed them. Some of them were jailed even 100 years, 200 years. But still, the corruption continued after he left power. Now, that shows that we need another strategy. That is what will now lead us to the issue of the power of the asset recovery, which, as we know that the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, the African Union Convention for Preventing and Combating of Corruption, and also the ECOWAS Protocol Against Corruption, all these international instruments have now encouraged countries to use asset recovery as a means of combating corruption. Because one of the main reasons people engage in corruption is greed and to benefit. If the corrupt know that if you steal, you're not going to benefit, now they will start having a second thought. It will send a signal that corruption does not pay. And also, it will send a signal that, look, the countries are doing a lot to ensure that those who steal government's money do not benefit from it. It now strengthens the issue of rule of law and accountability, because the citizen will now see that, yes, we are now pro rule of law. And also, it will now give confidence in the anti-corruption agencies and also prosecuting authorities, that because when people see the assets stolen by a government official, for example, were traced, freeze, recover, return back to government corpus, and utilize for the benefit of public, that will give confidence to the citizens of Africa. But if they realize that when I steal $1 million, I can get away with $800,000, people will continue. There is one African country where the head of the anti-corruption agency was telling me, in their country, the corrupt politicians, what they are saying, that if you send us to jail, it's like you send us to a boarding school. We will keep our loot, stay in prison, enjoy, because there is VIP section, use our mobile phones, and when we come back, we will continue to enjoy the fruit of the corruption. So, which means they devise another means of saying, okay, you can jail us, but we will enjoy the fruit of our process of crime. But what if you ensure that one penny they are not allowed to enjoy it? That is a good thing. So in Nigeria, now we have the legal and institutional framework for issue of assets and recovery. The Constitution of Nigeria, which is 1999 as amended, like any other constitution of countries, has guaranteed right to property. Everybody has right to acquire property in a legitimate way. And also, nobody shall deprive you of your property without following due process. Now, Section 44, Sub 2B of our Constitution now says that, okay, the government has the right to initiate a law for conviction-based forfeiture or civil forfeiture to deprive the corrupt of the proceeds of crime. And this framework provides constitutional basis for both, like I said, conviction and non-conviction based forfeiture, affirming states' legitimate power to deprive criminals of illicit assets, so that nobody will now come and say, look, I have rights to property. Yes, you have right to property, but you have to acquire property through legitimate way, not through corrupt practices or other means that are unlawful or through organized crime, like drug-related issues, like issue of trafficking of human beings. All these things are issues that are crime. If you acquire property through illegitimate means, the state has the power through you, the prosecutors, to either pursue the case through criminal conviction, a forfeiture, or through civil, so that the corrupt will be deprived from benefiting from the proceed of that unlawful activity. So, apart from the Constitution of Nigeria, there is the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission Act, which is the act that established the agency I'm heading. That act provides for civil and conviction based forfeiture, which we are using in order to deprive the corrupt persons from benefiting from their own illegitimate wealth. And also, this foundational law allows the Commission to seize assets and seek court orders to freeze bank accounts, laying the groundwork for future proceedings. Apart from that, there are other legislations. There is the Code of Conduct Bureau Act. Code of Conduct Bureau in Nigeria is an asset, it's a lifestyle audit agency. It has the power to receive asset declaration of government officials so that we will know what is your worth before you assume office as public officer. And you must declare it, your asset and your liability. And when you are exiting, you must declare the asset so that it will be compared to see that what you own is not illegitimate. And if you what you declare or you fail to declare, the Court of Conduct Bureau has the power to initiate proceedings before what you call Court of Conduct Tribunal, whereby the person will be subjected to trial, and also the tribunal has the power to forfeit asset acquired through unlawful means. Then there is Economic and Financial Crime Commission Act, and also there is Advanced Fee Fraud Act. All these legislation and others, they have provided the means of conviction-based or civil forfeiture proceedings so that the corrupt can be deprived. Now, the last act, which was promulgated in 2022, is Process of Crime Recovery and Management Act, which we call POCA 2022. This law is a landmark law which revolutionized asset recovery in Nigeria by aligning it with global standards and with align with the ONCAC and also the recommendation of PATAP. Because this law provides for step-by-step procedure of civil forfeiture, whereby all the agencies, the ICPC, the EFCC, the Code of Conduct Bureau, the NAPTIP, agency dealing with human trafficking, the NDLEA, agency dealing with drugs, all of them, they are using this law to secure civil forfeiture against corrupt persons so that they can use courts to secure forfeiture of proceeds of crime, and also has provided for the way the proceeds of crime that were recovered will be utilized. And one of the important provision in that act, which we will see later, is that for the anti-corruption agencies in Nigeria, once you make recovery, you are entitled to 2% of what you recover. If you recover any amount of money, that 2% is for you to use in your operation. You are going to remit the proceeds to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. But after that, you will request from the president that this is the amount of money which we recovered, which we remit to the CRF, and we are entitled to our 2%. They will remit that 2% to you, and you are the one to use it without any intervention. Nobody will dictate to you what you are going to use it. You can decide to say, okay, we are going to give you bonus. can decide to say you are going to buy vehicles. You are going to decide to say we are going to organize this kind of conference. So, which is a motivating factor for the anti-corruption agencies and us prosecution institutions to recover a proceed of a crime. Now, there are some innovations legal, in this law of poker. One that is centralized asset management, because directorate, the act provide that each anti-corruption agency, asset recovery institutions shall have proceed of crime directorate, which is a department in the agencies that coordinates the asset recovery. They manage those assets and also they dispose them and remit the money back to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Before poker, there is no this director, but now because of poker, we have that. Then the like I said earlier, the act now expand the power to use civil forfeiture without using the criminal conviction, which is the burden of proof is less, and also it places the burden of proof on the defendant, because we know the general position of the law that he who asserted must prove. Yes, even in civil forfeiture, the burden of proof is initial burden is on the prosecution agency, but it's very minimal. It's not prove beyond reasonable doubt. Once you are able to prove that this asset is a process of unlawful activity, you suspect, there is suspicion, the burden will now shift to the defendant to now show us why the interim forfeiture given to the asset, the anti-corruption agency or asset recovery institution cannot be made absolute, which is a new innovation in our own act. Then there is centralized accounts, which we call confiscated and forfeited properties account at the Central Bank of Nigeria to ensure transparent and unified management of recovered funds. Yes, there is an account in the CBN of Nigeria, Central Bank of Nigeria, whereby all the money recovered will be moved to that account by all the agencies, so that there will be central account whereby the government will know the amount of money the agencies recovered for reconciliation. And also, it is through that account they will be able to know how much you're able to recover for your own 2%, which I said that the record will be there. And so, as like in every country, we know that the mechanism that is issue of the states being taken, which I don't want to bother you with because I know you know all this. The the steps, we use financial intelligence, we use investigation. There are many things that you use in order to trail the money, and also the ICPC and like my agency and other agencies, they have the power to freeze an account without even court order first. But you need the court order to seize the property because the right to property which the persons have. And this process is important because one of the advantage of this issue of asset recovery is that it helps in disrupting the corruption network, corrupt persons network. Once they cannot use the money to do things, you'll be able to disrupt them. So it's really something which is important. Then the next issue which I have discussed about is how it works. The issue of criminal conviction, which we all know, it has to go through the rigors of a trial from investigation, arraignment, up to the judgment, and go up to appeal. While for the civil forfeiture, it starts from the motion expertise, which the agency will now place before court to ask for civil forfeiture first, interim. Then there will be publication of the order, which it has to be made published in national newspapers for those who are interested to come. Because as we know, it is a proceeding in rem. It's not issue that is tied to human beings, it's issue tied to the property. So that those who have an interest can come over and say, look, We have an interest in this so that they can shock us. If they shock us, then they will be allowed to take over their own property. So, and another issue is that this issue of asset recovery is something that it doesn't stop within our countries. Yesterday, when I came, I made presentation being made whereby Nigerians are involved in corruption in Zambia. Yes, I met the main mentioned. The same thing, when you go to Nigeria, you will see there are other nationals that are involved in corrupt activities. They are moving money from Nigeria to other countries. And if you do not dispossess them with this process of crime, it will going to fuel so many issues. We know the crisis that is happening in Africa, instability in some countries. Once there is illicit financial flows, the terrorists will use the money. Those who are peddling drugs will use it. Those who are trafficking persons will use it. We know what is happening. Recently, DPP Kenya, there is a documentary which I watched in one of the Kenyan TV about how this issue of organ harvest, which is not only in Kenya, it's almost everywhere. People are using human beings to harvest their organs, to use the money and for their own interest, but to see how corrupt are. And in that documentary I watched in Kenya, most of the people are coming even outside Africa, outside Africa, to come to Africa. And our people, because of the problem we have of appreciation, they are selling their kidneys at a cheap amount of money. So they don't know the consequence of this, and the money is being used to do something else. So that is why it is really important for all of us to work together. If there is a problem of Nigerian in Zambia, we want to have an interest. We have an interest in it. We want to know what is he doing here. Maybe the same thing is happening in Nigeria. So that is why we need to work closely together. And that's where the issue of mutual legal assistance will come in. In Nigeria, we have a lot of experience in joint investigation. It's MLA with United Kingdom, United States, Switzerland on issue of how to recover this process of crime. That is why this issue of collaboration between countries and anti-corruption agencies is very key. Now in Africa, if you remember, one of the recommendations of Thabo Mbeki High Level Committee is that Africa should have what we call Africa as a Recovery Practitioners Forum, which I am now heading as interim chair. And Zambia is one of the steering committee members from Southern Africa. Zambia and South Africa, they are steering committee members from South Africa, where Nigeria and Mali are members from West Africa. So each sub-region has two representatives, whereby we have been meeting. We met in Addis Ababa, we met in Arusha, Tanzania, we met in Nairobi, Kenya, and we are going to have another meeting. And we have been discussing how can we come together as a continent to ensure that the stolen assets of Africa, taken outside the shore of Africa, are traced, freeze, recover, repatriate back to Africa, and to ensure that it's being used for our own people. If you know that Africa has been victim of corruption for many years, I say it everywhere I go, the highest form of corruption is colonialism and slavery. We are victim of colonialism and slavery. If you know the number of persons that were shipped to the global north to work in farmlands, they use their own energy to build their own place, is something that we need to start talking about it. There is artifacts. These are our heritages all over Africa. Egypt, they recover close to 30,000 of their artifacts from the global north. Nigeria too, we have it. And we start asking questions. We need something from the revenue they got in their museums from our artifacts. Like I said, it doesn't make sense for a Zambian travel to London or Switzerland to go and see one of your artifacts. You pay money and see something that belongs to you. That is why in Africa at AARP, which the DPP is one of the steering committee member, we have been saying we have to expand this recovery to even artifacts, our heritage, our history. We need to do that because it's a source of income, which we need to start talking about that. So, and now the progress and innovation in Nigeria. In Nigeria, between 2017 to this year, Nigeria was able to recover 763 million US dollars from some countries, United Kingdom, United States, Switzerland, and also about 6.47 million pounds. These are money linked corrupt public officials. And I'm sure you have seen many cases in public domain. One of the cases which I know you have seen is the case of our former CBN governor, Central Bank governor, whereby one individual built an estate with over 700 houses. Because I used to say that in Africa, the way the public corporations are diverting public funds is even crazy. It doesn't make sense. Somebody who is over 60, who's 70, who is close to his grave, but he wants to accumulate wealth that is beyond his needs. It's crazy to own houses more than 700. In Abuja, house in Abuja in the area, you are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. What are you going to do with it? That is, it's not only in Nigeria. We know what is happening in Angola. We have seen about $19 billion was recovered by Angolan government. We have seen what is happening in Kenya, land grabbing. Public officials are grabbing land in order to use it. And the EACC was able to trace, recover those lands. And also one of the land recovered in Kenya, the government was able to build low income housing estate whereby about 13,000 individuals will use. So this is something that, and also another innovation in Nigeria is that we have what we launched National Central Database for Computer Recovery Assets and the Process of Crime. This is central data whereby every agency, when you recover the assets, you will put the information there. We are trying to now to make it accessible to public so that everybody can access it, not only in Nigeria, everywhere from the world, which for purpose of transparency and accountability. Now, if you go for the case studies, um, I want to play this. I don't know how can, this is a video which I want to play. Aha. This land you are seeing, which we seize, is a 36 times of football fields, whereby some government official, they're supposed to build 962 houses. They have collected $65 million, but not a single block was put on this land. All the money was wired out of Nigeria. They siphoned the money and they took it out of Nigeria. This land is in Abuja. Like I said, it has the size of football field 36 times. And they're supposed to build this since 2012. Up to today, they've not built one block. This is Africa. Like I said, people, some of our government officials, they don't have the conscience to look at what is happening in our continent. You collected money, you have the land, you secure the land, instead of you to build, but you wear the money out of the continent. So in this case, the approach we did was we have secure interim forfeiture of the land. And also we have filed charges against the government officials and their collaborators. so that they will face their criminal trial and also will continue with the final forfeiture so that this property will be recovered from them and also is going to be utilized. Then the second case is Musa Lawan money laundering case. This is an official of one of the government agencies whereby he wired £106,000 through a United Kingdom bank. We are able to collaborate with National Crime Agency and we secure interim a later final forfeiture of the amount of money which we recovered. So this will now show you that collaboration is important. If the NCA did not help us, we cannot secure this interim forfeiture. Then the last one, which is an interesting one, IPPIS fraud. In this case, what happened? We discovered that some government officials are inserting ghost workers in the government payroll. Ghost workers is a problem in Africa. These ghost workers, apart from the salary they were diverting, there is pension, there is mortgage, there is health insurance. We are able to recover over 20 billion naira. 20 billion naira is about like $13 million, which will be recovered from those government officials and some houses and other property. And we discovered that one of the government officials enrolled his wife, his daughter, his in-law, his son, and also he was collecting salary of about 9 public officials to himself. We discovered even a 4-star hotel as a public officer. Salary is running into the account of that 4-star hotel. We discovered many things that is happening. We use the civil forfeiture to forfeit that property and now remit the issue back to. Unfortunately, that government official, when we arraigned him in court, he committed suicide because of what we discovered. And we discovered there are people that even ran away outside Nigeria, like the United States. There are some that are not even in Nigeria, but they are collecting salary. So we use this civil forfeiture to ensure that we recover the money. So now I'll move to despite the progress which we have made, there are gaps. One of the gaps is the issue of transparency and accountability. That issue that, look, we need to have that central data to be accessible to public so that people will know. When we say we recover this land, we should put it in that database so that people, even here in Zambia, you can access. Then secondly, there is legal and procedural hurdles. Now, this issue of legal and procedural hurdles, there are 2 cases that now bring problem to us as prosecuting agencies and corruption agencies in Nigeria. This issue of civil forfeiture, there are 2 conflicting Supreme Court decisions in Nigeria now. The first case is Jonathan versus Federal Republic of Nigeria, whereby about $5 million was discovered in bank account of one woman and about 2 billion naira. So roughly you are talking about maybe now about $8 million. Now, civil forfeiture was commenced because she cannot account of how were you able to get this huge amount of money. Now, instead of the lady to go and show cause, she appealed and argued that that prohibition of civil forfeiture is contrary to the right to property as provided by the Constitution. The Court of Appeal said no, it's constitutional. Once the anti-corruption agency or the prosecutor were able to show reasonable suspicion, then the burden shifts on you to show cause. How were you able to get this amount of money? She moved to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court affirmed that decision as provided by the Constitution. Now, sorry, let me round up. Last year, another case, which is Merrill's. In that case, it was a kind of money that was given by some association of government officials that are suspected to be part of unlawful activity. The Supreme Court affirmed that decision was given against them in the High Court, Court of Appeal.
Sorry,
When they reached Supreme Court, the Supreme Court said, no, prosecution agency, you must link the unlawful activity to a specific crime. Now, it has put a challenge to us. So now, we are now moving from the normal civil forfeiture, which we know, which has nothing to do with criminal proceedings. And now they are now trying to put the burden on us as proved beyond reasonable doubt, which we feel is a serious hurdle because there is no need for me to show that this thing must be linked to a specific crime. This is something that is known globally. ONCAC and others. It's not a Nigerian issue. It's something that there is consensus across the globe that civil forfeiture is different from criminal conviction forfeiture. So which we feel is a challenge for us as an anti-corruption agency because it has now changed the jurisprudence. And we know where there are conflicting decisions of the Supreme Court, the latter in time prevails. So this is the challenge. So and other issues is the issue of dealing with third-party claims. Some people will come and show that this property belongs to us. And also there is issue of resource and capacity constraint. The resource is not enough for the anti-corruption agencies, prosecution agencies to be able to engage in this some kind of this asset tracing and asset recovery. Then effective use of recovered assets. If we want to convince people that the asset recover are not related, we must show people that this is what we use for them. In Nigeria, there's what we call NEL fund. It's a loan given to the students. And part of the loan is this process of crime that are used to give loan to students that are in university so that they can go to school and pay for their school fees. And also there is what we call Renew Hope Housing Estate, which is a housing estate built by initiated by the president that we are building houses so that people will see. In fact, in my view, we should be building house. If we build house with process of crime, we should write boldly. This house is built from the process of crime recovered from Mr. A. So that it will be boldly there. People will know for posterity, this money, this building was built by the process of crime of Mr. A. So that people will know that if you commit crime or you siphon government money, there will be evidence so that people will see. So then the recommendation which I made that the issue of transparency, we need that. And also we need to strengthen interagency collaboration and coordination. And also we need stronger legal regimes and also invest in legal capacity and technology, the legal regulatory framework, and also at the continental level, we also need to see how we can work closely with countries and civil society. And also, one interesting thing which I learned here is that we need in Nigeria specialized courts. Because averagely, corruption case in our country can take 15 to 20 years.